What's happening, guys? Welcome back. This is Thrylos International. We are here on a Sunday, couple days before Christmas. The holidays are here. We're in full swing. Olympiacos had a big match yesterday, a win, very narrow win, but it takes us into first place going into the new year, which is very important. Now, Martial and I are going to talk about all of that very shortly. But before we start, Martial, how you doing, buddy? Getting ready for the
Um,
holidays?
yeah, it's my first day of holiday from tonight, so I'm more than happy. Uh, Only frustration would be probably to have had an Olympiacos game on a Saturday because then after that the Sunday makes no sense. You know what I mean? When you get to work, you don't have any Olympiacos game to watch, and you also have to watch like Panathinaikos, PAOK, AEK playing against smaller teams, not dropping points unless I probably in some minutes. So yeah, it's one of those Sundays of Greek football we love so much.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, everyone, before we get started chatting about the game and what this means for the winter market, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're tuning in and you don't already. If you like what you hear, give us the engagement and it'll help us find more red and white fans. Even if you do follow us, hit that like button. Doesn't mean a lot to you guys, but it really helps us out. Takes 2 seconds. So go ahead, hit that like button and help us continue to find more red and white fans. You can also visit us on Patreon. You can support us there. Three different content tiers. Three different Patreon tiers, I should say. You can join the WhatsApp group for $1 a month, which is where we share a lot of information that we do not share on socials. Plus, there's also really good discussions that happen there. A lot of controversial ones in that respect related to football. Plus, there's always somebody to talk to. Doesn't matter what time zone you're in. So check it out. Patreon group is where, or the WhatsApp group is where it's happening. There's also extra content. There's a lot of stuff that we do, interviews with people outside of the realm of Greek football. We still have an episode with Martial we have to record as well. We're going to make Martial pronounce some very difficult English words. And you know what? We should do a reverse where you make Lambro do French words because I've heard
Yeah,
his French is
for
terrible.
sure,
So we have to do that. Would be hysterical.
for sure.
Anyway, check us out on Patreon. And then if you don't already, don't forget to follow us on socials. We just hit 8,000 followers on Facebook, which is huge. We are cruising to 12,000 on Instagram. And we're also cruising right now to 6,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is really cool. So social media has been picking up kind of all over the place for us. So we're growing the community and spreading the red and white worldwide. So help us continue to do that. If you don't follow us, you should on all of our channels. Now, we had a couple of quick things before we start talking about football. The Olympiacos basketball team had a big double win this week. So we are in third place, I believe, in the EuroLeague standing. So that's huge. Basketball is kicking into gear. Very entertaining to watch. I know the basketball guys will talk more about that later on, maybe when we get into the new year. So really exciting stuff. The basketball team's always really fun, even for somebody like me that doesn't really care much about basketball. The U19 had their first defeat of the season. They lost their first game in all competitions against PAOK yesterday. Very tough 1-0. The match itself, we had plenty of chances to score. The Olympiacos U19 probably should have scored at least 2 or 3 times. They did not. PAOK had a long-range effort that was quite a decent effort, we can say, and they scored. And then they kept it compact in the second half, and then they were the ones that ended up with the win. We're still proud of the U19. They were doing amazing things this season. In the Super League U19, 42 goals scored, only 4 conceded. That's including the PAOK game. Incredible stuff from them. Not to mention they have been quite dominant so far in the UEFA Youth League, and they go into the knockouts now in the spring. So they're going to be back into the knockouts, playing knockout football against some of the top academies in the world. So we'll be supporting them there. We're really excited to see what they have in store for us without even the best players from the team last season. They're doing this all without them, with a new crop of talent. Incredible stuff coming in through this pipeline, Martial. Now let's get to it. Let's start talking about Olympiacos versus Lamia, because there are a lot of things about this match that can tell us a little bit about what we can expect in the winter. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the game. Tight, narrow 1-0 win. Pretty ugly in the first half.
Yes.
But Mendilibar must have had a pretty big halftime talk. He made a couple of changes, and after, really it was about 10 minutes into the second half, we saw things. Actually, no, even in the beginning of the second half, the intensity was picked up. We were starting to materialize more chances. And, things were ugly. We had the substitution from Carmo very early, 27th minute. And then Mendilibar in his post-match presser said, he could have made 5 changes in the first half. He was very unhappy with how people were playing. So, Martial, tell us a little bit about what you saw in this match.
This game was like very weird because honestly, I was expecting not an easy win, but one of those games that 2-0, 3-0 probably with like 50 good minutes on it, in which we barely play at 100% because it was the last game of the year. We needed the 3 points. But the thing is, without Thrylos, probably it would have been 1-0, if not more, for Lamia, because he had 2 good saves, if not instant saves, in the first half. I'm talking about the situation in which Carmo was dribbled, and I think there was another one. So yeah, it was such a strange game because I don't know, for the first the duration of the first half, I was talking to myself, thinking, okay, it might be the end for not the end for Mendilibar, but we were seeing signs of some Martin's game at the end, if you remember, when the team
Yes.
is auto-piloting, if I can say that. And the good thing with Mendilibar is that he did not wait to make a sub, which was Carmo, and I think it was probably a little bit rough at the moment, but when you look overall, with 1 day that has passed, it was a good decision. And I think Carmo went straight to the bench. He did not even complain because probably knew he wasn't. I don't know. He wasn't in the game anyway. And
No.
the only thing that mattered yesterday was to win anyway. And but the game was very strange, if I can say that. It's
Yeah.
one of the strangest game of the season.
It was. It was in a couple of ways. I mean, so the game kind of highlighted a lot of the things that we've been talking about, right, Martial? So Carmo got beat a couple of times very bad. Even Pirola in that
Yeah,
first half. There was one chance that Lamia had that was, that Solakis had to go full stretch for in the end
yeah,
after he beat one of the center backs. And, looking at things, if we're looking kind of at things from a half by half perspective, Lamia for the course of the match, they had all of their really threatening chances that they had were in that first half. They had a total XG of 0.87. They almost scored. They probably should have scored with a post shot XG or an expected goal on target of almost 1.2. So really, they had some decent opportunities and some pretty decent shots from those opportunities as well. We are the exact opposite of a team in that respect. It seems like every team that plays against us, we only give them maybe 1 or 2 decent chances, but then when they get those chances against us, they're able to actually get things on target. They're actually able to make us work, make our goalkeeper have to make saves, and they get goals. Then you have Olympiacos. Olympiacos will have 20 shots, and only 4 or 5 of them will go anywhere near the target. For those of you that are tuning in live, I just put up a graphic here. This has been on socials, and you can check it out on socials. But this is a graphic that shows where all of our shots came from, where they were. Our total XG for the night was 2.23, so we underperformed yet again. XGOT, so our post-shot XG shows that our finishing was again subpar at 1.81. In the first half, we missed pretty much everything. We did not get a shot on frame until the 64th minute, which was Gelson's goal. And then here's a list of all the shots. So this is mainly the first half, Martial. All misses and shots blocked by defenders. Then you get into the second half, and again, until, while the intensity was picking up, same thing up until we scored the goal. Then we're finally generating things on frame. And this team, the story of this team this season was brought up again in this match. People talk a lot about our creativity, right? Which we can say we do have some creativity issues. That's not untrue. But we can't even put away a lot of the chances that we get. For the first time, Martial, since we're able to go back in the data since 2015, Olympiacos is going into the end of a year, the first half of its season, underperforming relative to XG. We have never done that before. We have always overperformed. This season, we're underperforming. So that to me, that doesn't spell that it's just a creativity problem. We have an efficiency problem, which you and I have both said many times. And we saw that against Lamia.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because I've watched, for example, PAOK's game against Atromitos, and it's a 3-0 win that has no more ingredients on it compared to the game we've just had against Lamia. And I don't know how to say that. It's same issues again and again, but it's diluted by players because El Kabi looks tired as fuck. He's not converting as it should be, for example, for the moment. And we remember the header in Calita, for example. But it also applies to any offensive player like Masuras, not Gelson, but still Gelson is wasting situation because we've seen it in Europe, for example. And there is some kind of, I won't say it's a curse, but you have that lack of efficiency that is mixing with injuries, and those two things are related because a player that has been injured will most likely miss chances. And I don't know if it's that related, but too many factors are playing against us. And that's why I'm frustrated when we keep talking about specific players or about Williams' wages, about Valdes' fee, about those stuff. It's important, but what's more important is that we are underperforming and we're still top of the league. So it means that we're doing probably 60 to 70% of things right. And one thing that we do right is that we have a goalkeeper that saves a lot of situation. And if you remember last season, I think we talked about that, about Pashalakis, and we had questions like, is this guy good enough to win a title? I had no complaint over Pashalakis, but he wasn't saving enough situations from the opponent. We solved that, but we are going step by step anyway. It's the process is frustrating because we should have had like 4 to 5 more points tonight.
I agree with you. I actually took heat last season because I was one of the first people to say, like, look, Paskalakis, and not necessarily because I thought his game itself was really bad, but I just saw within, I was looking at the data and I was like, it's not good. When he actually gets into a situation where he has to make a save or he's relying on his reflexes, he was terrible. He was really bad. He could come off the line. He could do some things really well. But if he was called into action on a situation like Tsolakis sees all the time, he won't make those saves that Tsolakis does. So in that, you're right. And regarding El Kabi, Martial, there's I have a very interesting statistic for this. So, and it's something that we kind of warned about because we talked about how important El Kabi's been. Him and Gelson Martins, they make up the most goal contributions right now for the team. A team that scores a little bit less than it did last season at the same point. El Kabi in particular was in monstrous form. El Kabi has now gone 3 straight matches without a single goal contribution. This is really big. Do you know when the last time El Kabi went 3 straight matches uninterrupted without a goal contribution?
Has to be 1 year ago, probably between October to November, December. I don't know. One of those months.
So yes, actually, that was October to October, actually to end of November. He had a drought. I think he went like 6 or 7 straight matches without scoring. But technically, before he left for AFCON, um, remember after the 2-2 draw against Volos, where Diego Martinez got fired, El Kabi scored in that game. He didn't score in the 2 matches after that. There was one against, I think it was Atromitos, and I don't remember who the other one was. It might have been Panserikos. But then he went away to AFCON, comes back in February for the cup match against Panathinaikos, and doesn't do anything. So technically, that was 3 matches without a goal, but there was a break, right? He was interrupted because he was gone for a month. But the last time he went uninterrupted, 3 matches in a row without a goal contribution, was when he was in that horrible form, October, November, where everyone was like, who is this guy? Get him out of here. So we have relied a lot on El Kabi for some of these goals. And when he's not in form, we have to, we have to talk about you need goals to come from elsewhere. And it doesn't help when the other individuals getting involved and El Kabi himself are ruining every opportunity on the planet. Martial, I lose my mind every time I watch Chiquinho ruin an offensive transition when we're getting into the penalty area. I lose my mind when I see crosses from guys like Rodinei, Chiquinho, and even Gelson Martins, and they're killing the pigeon population in Piriat. We ruined so many opportunities. Martial, we should have had at least 2 goals yesterday.
No,
But we
I
can't get
agree.
shots on frame. This is unacceptable.
It's another thing that frustrates me because I would say the solution to that, in my opinion, would be on games like that. I mean, would be using youngsters that have talent, of course, but the main thing that those youngsters have is they are not polluted yet by missed situation, uh, the fee, the wage. You know what I mean? They play without fear, without taking really into consideration what's going on around, and that's why Costolas probably has been so good. A part of the fact that he's very talented, of course, but either he plays in Tumba or in Ophap Arena or in Karaiskakis, uh, away in Europe, it is the same every time. He adapts so quickly to the environment, and that's some I don't know, some fuel Mendilibar could use a little bit more in the league, because if we have to draw against Kalitea, against those teams, it's better to draw with Bakulas coming for 20 minutes, with Papacanelos missing the situation. I know people say it in the summer, like we should be careful with the youngsters because if they miss a game, a pass, they will get criticized. The coach will get criticized. But who did you find anyone that still remember Musakitis losing a ball against Rangers, for example? No one
No.
cares anymore. He has done it, yes, that's true. But we passed that.
Right.
It's
And he
part of the
wasn't amazing
process.
against Lamia either, right? He wasn't amazing against Lamia. We can say that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and that for our offensive issues, it's frustrating because we're getting to
right.
January, and I know that the club would sign players, which I find frustrating because even if I don't believe that Papacanelos or Bakulas are ready to be first team members like starters or the first solution out of the bench, they could have played more in that first half of the season because they can bring something different from the inside. And the inside solutions are always the most reliable solution over time. We won't be able to find players in January that would come to Olympiacos from January the 1st being fit, having confidence, and it's not possible. We did it once, but we did it because we had Carvajal and he had his phone ringing whole Portugal to bring players. Maybe Mendy can do that. We know, for example, players like Suzo, for example. Is this guy able to come January 1st and even do what Canos did when he came at first. This is what we need in January. You know what I mean?
I
Canos,
agree
a
with
part
you.
of the player he was, the personality he has, the character he was so much needed in the locker room. It was the year before.
Look, I'm with you there 100%. And you know, we're going to touch on this. We're going to touch on this a little bit later, but you know, I do worry that we're going to miss the real profile that we actually need. In that respect, because I think we're going to go for certain traits and values that we've tried and haven't necessarily worked out for us already. And I think those are the values and traits we're going to try to find in a player that I don't think will work. When for us, like a Sergi Canos type of player, I agree with you. I think is exactly what this team needs. Somebody that's got fight into him, somebody that's going to move. Yeah. You brought up something very important, Martial, that I want to talk about too. You brought up like Kostulas, how he adapts, how he moves around. And there's a big issue with Mendilibar, right? When it comes to certain matches. And the first part is when it comes to the smaller teams, you can tell what's worked on in practices, right? You can tell what we actually focus on. And primarily it's get the ball wide. When you get into the final third, cross the ball inside. And the reason we know that there's not much else that's worked on getting into the penalty area, the final third, is because there's not a lot of movement into the spaces in between. There's one player that consistently will move in between the lines and try to run into the spaces. That's Kostulas. Babis Kostulas is really the only player that's doing that. There's a lot of other stagnant movement besides that. And we can see this. We can see this in the data, in the things behind and underlying. All of our open play attacks go down the flanks. Almost all of them. We're averaging almost 80% go down the flanks when we get into the final third. 80%. We're averaging, Martial, almost in the Greek league, not all competitions. We're averaging almost 30 crosses a game. Averaging almost 30 crosses a game. I brought this up in the WhatsApp chat. So we don't have another way to break these defenses down unless you have players like Babis Kostulas who are actually the ones running in between spaces. And that's a lot of what's missing. So we here and then find why we stagnate against these lower block teams, because they're looking at us and saying, wait, okay, you're going to push the ball to the flank. You're not even going to overload our box. You're not going to put 3 and 4 guys in the penalty area. Fine. We'll take this all day long. You need those players that are going to exploit those spaces. So whatever player that we do bring in has to be able to do that on his own, whether it's by Mendilibar's instruction or not. He has to exploit those spaces. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see the same issues. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if we're going to be a team that relies on the crosses, fine, but you need to use your best asset. We asked this question on socials. Is it time for the Costinha era? Joao Costinha is the best crosser on this team right now. In yesterday's game, we had 41 crosses. We connected 10 of them. That's less than 25% accuracy. 22 crosses came from Gelson, Chiquinho, and Rodinei. 22 crosses between the 3 of them. They only connected with 3 of them. Costinha connected 3 crosses by himself of a total of 4. So if this is the type of thing that Mendilibar is going to continue with, which he probably will, because he's not changing anytime soon, you need to use your best asset at crossing. You need to use the guy that is going to get the ball to people and hit people, actually get it on their person. You also need to allow more people to get into the penalty area. I almost broke my screen when I watched Francisco Ortega hit not 1, but 2 balls across the goal mouth, and we didn't have a single player crashing the net. We had only 1 person in the box. It doesn't make sense.
what doesn't make sense is that when you watch football globally, a lot of teams try to cross when they need to score a goal, which looks like to be the easiest way to create danger. But the deeper issue is that you don't find in modern football uh, good crossers. Like you don't find it
No.
because Asia, uh, when in the academies, they don't teach players to do that because uh, fullbacks are basically wingers that are moved back to defenders because they can attack and run fast. But someone that knows how to cross most likely has it since is a teenager and is
Right.
living on it. And someone that don't cross properly won't 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 be ever a good crosser. And I'm talking about Rodinei, for example. I appreciate the guy, his energy, we can say whatever we want about Rodinei, but he will never be a good crosser because he does not have the technique, does not have the the knowledge of good crosses. And Costinha's crosses not only are good, but they are elite because the ball is almost never in the air because it's either on the ground or mid-air, which suits perfectly someone for a first touch shot. And the thing I wanted to say is the cross technique sometimes looks like Atletico with Simeone. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
so minimalistic. You give the ball to the fullback or to the winger, and you try to cross. But we don't even have good players when it comes to headers. Like we only have El Kaabi. We don't have uh, someone that is not tall but has good timing, which is the main quality for headers anyway. The thing is, it's so frustrating because with crosses you have a huge range of motion. You can have
Yeah.
back back passes. You can have in the air, into ground, mid air, straight to the goalpost to force an own goal, for example. And we're not using it, and it comes back to what I've said on the last pod and even before. Like the team looks so undertrained. Players themselves, it's December, it's the end of December, and sometimes you wonder if like it Rodinei has been playing with El Kaabi for a year, if not more. How is that possible? He can't connect with him more often. You don't need to be a good crosser to connect with the striker. It's
Right.
automatisms. It's learning when El Kadi will be. It's learning where Gelson will be. It's, you know what I mean? You have to train that during the week because it's not a matter
Yeah.
of learning how to cross. It's learning with who you're playing with. That's a team. And sometimes it's, I just wonder what they do during the week. I'm not even talking about set pieces because the issue is even bigger, but sometimes you just have to wonder. Like sometimes in smaller games, for example, Rodinei gets tons of spaces on the
Yeah.
right side. He has like 3 seconds to cross, and he's still able to put the ball into a defender or into the
Yep.
goalkeeper or outside the pitch, and
Or kill a
it's
pigeon.
not possible. It's not even a good pass.
Yeah.
I just can't understand.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. Like, look, there, and this is. I want to be clear because somebody got upset with me earlier on socials, thinking I was just trashing Rodinei, and that's not the case. I respect Rodinei as a player. He has. There is a context for him, right? Like we know what Rodinei is very good at. Last season, he was one of our largest, our best progressors of the ball forward, right? Rodinei could get the ball forward for us. He and Costas Fortunis and Panos Retsos were responsible for the majority of our final third transitions. He's one of our better one-on-one players, right? He can take players on one-on-one. He's very good at getting the ball up there. But in a match against a lower block team, we live in their final third already. So you don't need him to do that necessarily, right? So you need somebody, you need better ways to get into the penalty area. And that's where the problem is. We have plenty of entries into the penalty area, but we don't materialize great chances always from them. There's one player that happens to almost every time he's on the pitch and he delivers a ball, we get something decent out of it. So I just don't understand how you can't say that this guy isn't a day in, day out starter. Let Rodinei play in the wing. He's been way more useful to us this season as a winger than as a right back. I would be happier with him being the alternate right back and playing more as a winger than day in, day out as a right back. It just doesn't make sense. And then at the same time, well, go ahead, Marcel. Sorry.
The fact that we're still discussing about Costinha is, I don't know. It's you're signing someone because Marinakis bought Rio Ave. Marinakis also brought to the club what was on paper the biggest asset of Rio Ave, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was.
He was the best right back of the Portuguese league.
Correct.
The fact that he did not start the season as a right back, I can understand that because Rodinei was fresh off a title. Okay, but it comes back to what I've said before. How is that possible? Like you get to see the team on during the trainings all week long. I'm 100% sure it takes 1 week to realize that Costinha is made to be the starter. We lost precious amount of time not starting Costinha because of Rodinei being the main solution. And I appreciate Rodinei, but we need backups, and Noe is the backup as right back. It's obvious, and I don't think he can change. It doesn't mean I don't like Rodinei. It doesn't mean he should leave. Costinha is just too good to be discussed about. Like he has to play 90 minutes of football if he's fit. And when you see Costinha, you just know this guy is able to play 45 games. It reminds me of Eze last season. Same kind of player. He will get tired at some point, but I would say I don't even care. Like Costinha will stay 1 year and a half, max 2 years in this club. I can smell it. It's obvious. The way he crosses, the way he's made as a player for a specific position like that, it's not going to stay long. Like we need to enjoy that. And Mendilibar needs to understand that when the first solutions are ready to play, and same apply for what Red Sauce you mentioned before, they have to start. Why would you start Carmo over Red Sauce, man?
Look,
I don't know. If Red Sauce is to be protected, he stays on the bench.
Then look, I'm with you there, and that's a whole nother issue we can talk about. Mendilibar's fascination with over managing the defensive line, mainly the center backs. Once again, Martial, we had an entire rotation of the center backs. Once again, I went back as much as I could in Y Scout to see and then I tried to go through using Transfer Market all the way back to when Marinakis first got here to find a single coach that changed center backs as much as Mendilibar does.
Yeah, you know what? It reminds me. The last thing I was feeling that it was when Martins was swimming on the third and fourth goalkeeper when we won the league by February. You know what I mean? Papadudis coming in, even so Young Tolaki is coming in to get the title medal. That was the last time we were making so strange subs. But the question is, does he? I don't know. He probably has a reason. He'll need to explain it at some point because Azer thinks that a defense can evolve during the game, which would be some kind of modern approach of the game. Because at the end of it, he has 5 subs. If you want to change the defense because he thinks that Red Sauce or Biancon can have better passing ability, which is true, I'm okay with that. It's a tactical change anyway, but you can't do this every game.
Right. Yeah.
And we probably barely benefited from that.
Yeah, it's insane. Martial, to answer the previous question, I could not find a coach that changed a center back outside of an injury substitution more than 5 times in a season. More than 5. Pedro Martins did it. Pedro Martins was the one. He did it 5 or 6 times, I think, in the 2021-2022 season. And then the same thing in the season before that, usually subbing out Usain Uba for foul trouble. But
Yeah.
nobody, Mendilibar changed the center backs out 5 times before the end of September. Too much. It's over. It's
No,
over tinkering.
he did it too in place of, if you remember, I'm not gonna say it again. The game in Saloniki, for example, with Ndoye as our center back, he
Right.
was using Abi. I get the fact that he was trying to value the squad he has, but he surely has a center back pair in mind, and he should stick with it until someone gets injured, because injury is part of the game. We've seen it, we saw it in the club for the past weeks. You can't always rest players to avoid injuries because you need to win games at the end of it. We are not going to play easy games back to back. If you scared to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong because I don't know why Red Sox would be on the bench. Is the captain? Who puts the captain on the bench for the last league game of the season? Who? It's
Yeah, it's
it,
difficult. And then to add insult to injury, I want to go back to a comment from Mike Scott before, who was asking a question about why Papacanelos and Bakulas are not playing. He said, "Why are they not playing? We don't have their characters in either position better than them, neither for starting or sub." Jesus, he ends the note on. And look, Bakulas, I think, is a trickier scenario. I do think that Bakulas would be useful because we saw that in the preseason, especially when he was playing in a deeper position, he's not afraid to get forward. I also think that playing in that 10 role where Costulas has been playing and Chiquinho was earlier in the season, that Bakulas would be very valuable for us there with not just his effort, but his ability to run between the lines and play the ball. I'm with that there, but I think the more egregious one for me is Papacanelos here. We've seen what we've gotten from a lot of wingers, and in many cases, when the wingers aren't playing well, especially Gelson Martins, like when he had that 2-game stretch where he didn't look well, you need somebody that is not afraid to just run at people and try and make things happen. And Papacanelos, while he doesn't necessarily maybe follow instruction, I can see that a little bit. He does that. He'll take the ball, he'll run at defenders. He's not afraid to, even if he loses it. And sometimes you need a player like that. I think it's more egregious that a player like Papacanelos hasn't been getting more time. And people have told me in the past, oh, well, he's doing stuff with the U19. Guys, I'm sorry. The first team takes precedence for me. I don't care as much about the U19 winning titles. It is fantastic if they're winning titles. I love the fact that they won the Youth League. That's a sign of the great work we're doing. But we shouldn't be imprisoning players there just for the sake of winning a youth title. If a player like Papacanelos is going to be useful for you, use him. I don't care about age. He's 17, he's 19. We have to be careful. If you're ready, you're ready. And the 5 players that were promoted to the first team for the summer, Bakulas, Koutsidis, Muzakitis, Kostulas, who am I missing? And Papacanelos. Those players are ready for the first team. You play them because you're not getting as much from some of these players that are playing right now, regardless of whether it's injury or otherwise. Yorgos Masouras has done nothing this season for us. Since Mendilibar arrived, he's been very limited in his usefulness to this team. So there's no reason for me why you shouldn't be playing those kids. I would rather see their energy on the pitch than anything else. So that's
the,
that's the
I,
issue there. But I'm going to guarantee you that Papacanelos is not playing simply because I don't think he presses in line with everybody, and you can see that on the pitch. That's my 2 cents.
the thing is, at least no, we don't have to worry about people being reluctant to see youngsters. But the thing is, how many times we've read like Olympiacos fans saying, "Okay, the team's lacking passion. We need a player that fights more." But the best definition of a youngster is someone that has the passion. Like really is not really polluted by egos yet, by the wages, the fee, the locker room stuff, the fact that he's settling in Greece or not. Does he love does he love the Greek league or not? You know what I mean? It's basically when you use youngsters, you're giving yourself more time to work on other
Right.
things. Because if we did not have Kostulas and Musakitis, we would have we would need probably 5 to 6 transfers in January. No, I don't think we need that much of transfers, but it's it's difficult when you're the coach, like handling the fan frustrations. Uh, but this I don't know. It's Papacanelos. I'm surprised he did not play more, given the schedule we had to start the league. I'm okay. It's normal that he doesn't play in Europe or maybe away in Tumba, but the same applies to Velde. But that's another debate, in my opinion.
Yeah. Martial, the chat is already chiming in about transfers. So before we move on and talk about transfers and do man of the match coaches grade, I think that we need to kind of take a step back and look at a couple of things. With this match, we've talked about the issues that have gone on all season and what that mean and how we saw all of that manifest in this match today. But we need to take a step back and look at where we sit right now going into the new year. This team is underperforming. We're in first place, even if it's just by a point. We're in first place. We have arguably the best defense in the Greek league. We have, I think, tied for the most goals with Balk right now. Or actually, no, they just overtook us with the goals they scored today. Highest XG overall. That could change after today as well. 9 points in Europe when the most points we've gotten in a European group stage campaign through 6 rounds was 9 points in the last 15 years almost. So we're going into the new year in first place. We're only a couple points out of the top 8 spots. 2 decent results. We could end up, we would either end up seeded or in a top 8 spot in Europe. And we only need really 1 or 2 transfers for this team to really cook. So just taking stock of that before we move on to man of the match and then talk about our position in the transfer window, we really need to take a step back and look at where we are. This time last year, we had fired our coach. Things were looking really bad. We got a point deduction. We had lost first place. A couple teams had just overtaken us. We brought in a new coach. We had no idea what direction we were going in, and things weren't looking too great. So just bear that in mind. Changes will happen in the winter. We're going to talk about the position briefly before we close up the show in about another 15, 20 minutes. But I just want everybody to think about that as we get into things here. The summer was not a failure. It was not a complete disaster. And we're in a pretty good position considering that we are underperforming. And we also haven't had as many extra time minutes given to us or as many red cards against our opponents. So let's also throw that there. But go ahead, Martial.
No, I just wanted to say when we were talking about uh, the defense before, like it's working in Europe. Like you don't see any experiment in Europe. Why would he experiment so much in the Greek league?
Right.
No one asked him to do that. This is the only frustration I have because when you see what we do in Europe, like the quality of the defensive games we have, either it's because Solakis saves a situation or because we are lucky enough not to eat goals, but still we have one of the best defense in Europa League, which is almost at the same level than Champions League from 7 to 8 years ago. If you look at it, we do have that. Like the team is two faces with the same players almost. Like some choices aren't adding up, and I don't blame only the coach for that, but it's also up to the players to put the same focus on the league, which is, to me, it's a big issue, but it's probably the biggest issue Olympiacos can face, which is players not caring enough about the league, the reality of the league, week in, week out.
Right.
But I don't know. It's
I hear you. I hear you, Marcel. And we're going to touch a little bit more on that because obviously we're going to talk about that with our little transfer discussion. But before we go ahead and do that, let's talk man of the match coach's grade. Guys, if you haven't yet done your vote, go ahead and quickly vote for your man of the match. It is very tight in terms of the audience vote. So go ahead, jump in, get your vote in. If you're tuning in on X, try to join us on YouTube. That way you can interact a little bit better. Also, your comments on X, we do not see directly in the live stream. We have to go. I keep the tabs open from socials, but you have to be in YouTube to be able to send comments into here. So if you're listening in on X, consider joining us here on YouTube so you can interact with us better. But Martial, who would be your man of the match, and what's your coach's grade for Mendilibar?
I would give my man of the match trophy to Tsolakis uh, for the main reason being that he saved us 2 times in the first half, and also that man of the match trophy has to be an achievement for him because I really enjoyed the player he's becoming. The fact we renewed the guy in the middle of the summer, fresh off European title, it was key part of it. I think maybe in the future we will realize what it means to renew Cholakis with with an ending contract after a Conference League trophy. Uh, I don't know the thing is with the goalkeeper, the market of goalkeeper is so strange that it wouldn't be a surprise if Solakis stays for 4 more years, for example. If he sees that he won't have a basic jersey in a better club that plays either bigger competition or for titles, I would not be surprised if he stays at the club. That being said, the coach's grade for me has to be, I would give Mendy C because I didn't like the lineup without Biancon or Red Sauce, and I appreciate the early sub, but not the other sub. So it's a C. He won the game. He corrected something that it needed to, but it needs to. I would say uh, it's like when you have a teenager at school. It's a warning. You know what I mean? I don't know the word in English when you have that. Every 3 months when you go in front of the teachers, they say, "Hey, you get a warning because of the behavior. You need to get more serious." And I would give that to Mendilibar because even if the Greek league is weak, you can't shit with football anymore. It's not the era
Yeah,
of Marco Silva in which we played. If you remember, we played Kaloni. Kaloni, it's
right.
like shittiest team ever. Olympiacos, those teams like that were. I think those teams were worse than the under 19 team we have right now. The
Right.
league is still weak, but improved a lot when it comes to smaller teams. And
Yes.
we need to Mendilibar, the club in general, needs to understand that. And the fact that we underperforming indicates that Mendilibar understood that, but it just need to do better choices, which sounds like easy, but it's not that easy.
I'm with. I think so. I share your man of the match. Kostas Tsolakis for me. I always talk about in these matches. I talk about who I think put us in the best position to win the game. And while I think a lot of people probably would tell you, look, Gelson Martin scored the goal. He was one of the best players on the pitch. He would be your man of the match. But for me, it's Tsolakis because we were not good in the first half. And that was a time where we probably should have conceded. And if not for Tsolakis, we would be down 1-0. Lord knows we would probably be talking about another draw here, or even worse, perhaps a loss if not for Tsolakis' heroics. So for me, he's the man of the match. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more, I think, gentle with Mendilibar than you were. And the reason being is because, like you, I was not a super huge fan of the starting lineup. Specifically, I didn't understand why Rodinei was starting as right back. I wanted Costinha to be starting. and I didn't like the general shape of things. And then, of course, the first half was just not good as a result. I appreciated the early sub. After the 58th minute sub, the double sub when he did Oliveira and Costinha, a few minutes later, we scored the goal. We saw more pressure, a couple of opportunities happen. And then after that, of course, we had the triple opportunity miss with Gelson and El Kabi, which he was later offsides for. So when I saw that we were getting better opportunities, even though we were missing him, I saw that the momentum was continuing to build up for us. So in that respect, I will give Mendilibar a B, simply because even though I didn't agree with all of the substitutions and the starting lineup, the changes that he made, namely Costinha, had impact, and it resulted in us winning the game. Just all things. So in that respect, I'm going to be a little bit easier on him there, despite the fact that I have some issues with other things that he's done. Now, the audience was very split. Let's see where we're at now. So actually, the audience, last couple votes just came in, and it looks like Gelson Martins has the audience vote, 43%. Cholakis now down to 33%, who is runner up there. But if that changes, we'll talk more about that. But now we're going to do a small pivot, and we're going to talk about more our winter, what we learned, and kind of like some general things about the winter market. There's a couple of comments though before we do that I did want to address, Martial. Some pretty good ones, and we'll talk about those very briefly. So Nick 23 wanted us to comment or speak about Jose Luis Mendilibar's post-match comments, other comments, not the ones that we addressed already. So Nick 23 said that Mendilibar mentioned in the January upcoming transfers that there's a probability that some transfers won't be successful, just like the summer ones fail. To me, this means that he won't get the players that he wants. That's what Nick 23 said. Do you get that from Mendilibar's comments? I just think he was making a general statement. I didn't read into that.
Well, if he really said it's more difficult to get good players in January, basically, I think it's true, because when you're Olympiacos on the club scale of football, you can't pick who you want unless you get players like Velde, right, from lower league, like performing players from lower league, but they cost money. So maybe I think he probably knows that what he asks or what he wants is not easy to do. Maybe it's kind of poker game. I don't know. It's so difficult to understand, to really see what Mendy has in mind, because I've asked myself that when you look at the team from last season, for example, do people really think that Mendilibar wanted to keep as much as possible from the batch of players that won the Conference League? I don't believe so, and I just don't. I'm struggling to really see what kind of player Mendilibar would want right now. I know his plans, I know his ideas of football, but if I had to pick on the market player he wants for the club, I don't know, because he never coached a club like Braga, for example, with Carvajal, because Braga is a club we can copy. You know what I mean? Copy. We can use players they have because it's a good club. It's a good European club. But Mendilibar, a part of Sevilla, barely coached player that for me has the level to come from Olympiacos.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the comments go, I'm not reading too much into those. I think if I really was going to, I would think that maybe subliminally Mendilibar is saying, look, like, we can't just look to transfers to fix everything. You know what I mean? We have to solve kind of the situation here first. One player isn't going to make the difference. That, if I were reading into it, that's kind of what I would see that he was saying. I'm not going to read any more into that, to be honest with you. There's another comment here from known as Arctic. I think the summer's transfers fault was that we tried to get so many. I will say almost random players rather than get two solid ones or just renew Podence's contract. What do you think? So we're going to start off because, quite frankly, and known as Arctic, this is nothing to you, buddy. We see it all the time in the WhatsApp chat. I get it all the time on social media, and I'm really getting sick of the Podence and Fortunis talk. Both players have now gone on record and said they were never coming back to Olympiacos. Podence has said that, and now Fortunis has said it on Nova Sports. Both players were gone. We have been telling you guys since the summer that we had been hearing Fortunis' bags were packed since last year. Podence, as it turns out, played the fan base. Maybe not for fools, but he played the fan base. He played on our emotions, and he was leaving anyway. He was leaving to go to Saudi Arabia. He made an ask that he knew the club would never be able to do, and he was going to get the money. Both him and Fortunis are basically retired. They got a European title. They're leaving on a high note, and they have every right to do that. So we're not going to talk about Podence and Fortunis anymore because it was never happening. Regarding the other transfers, some were hit and miss, but I think we did some great moves this summer, defensively at least. Maybe offensively, we can say other moves were not so good. But Martial, I think you and I will agree that Costinha and Pirola were two amazing moves by this club. Costinha worked already. Pirola, who nobody would have imagined would have been first choice over David Carmo as a left-footed center back. So those two players turned out really good. The problem was the panic buys. That's the issue.
Yeah, but it's always the ending of a season that basically says if a signing is good or not. Because in January, let's not forget that we signed Cabral, useless. We've signed Vezo, completely useless. Mm-hmm. We've signed Abi, not useless, but will be soon useless because he's not playing on his loan, and he's most likely going to be loaned again and again, if not sold. In every transfer period, we will have useless signings. And the fact that we won Conference League does not mean every transfer was successful. My frustration is that I changed my mind over transfers because of the last season, and I'm surprised that people of the Olympiacos fan base gets too emotional about transfers anytime, because we can control like 10% of it as fans. I mean, it's the main issue as I'm seeing as Olympiacos right now is the amount of people getting involved in transfers, because it's when you look at the transfer we've made, it doesn't look like transfers from a sport director, or part of the transfer look rational, like Velde coming off a good season in Poland. It makes sense for him to come to Olympiacos, which is a bigger club. But then on top of that, you have Willian, you have Oliveira, you have Yazici at the end of the free agency. All those things, it's a matter of too many different energies trying to do transfers. You know what I mean? Rather than individual not being good enough to play. Because if we've signed, for example, Oliveira only and not Stamenic, maybe Oliveira would have been better starting from scratch. But who signed Stamenic? What's the reason of signing Stamenic, for example? Then you sign Oliveira, then you sign Yaremchuk. It looks like 5 different sports directors made transfers this summer.
Right.
That's the main issue. It's bigger than players themselves.
Yeah. And, look, for me, I know a lot of people would disagree with me here, but I don't think we can call Christopher Veld a bad transfer. The guy's got 6 goal contributions. Look, he had an amazing preseason, and then with the fee, that the expectation with the fee we paid was high. He didn't start off the season so well. And then, but he's looked the last couple of games when he's played, he's looked fantastic. He came on as a substitute, and the guy should have an assist. He should have had an assist. He should have had an assist the game before that too. I don't believe that Christopher Veld, look, he may have had attitude issues, but he seems to be looking much better. Danny Garcia was another one. Danny Garcia was another one. He looked really bad early, and then he started to grow into his own, then except for the last like match or two. That was a Mendy signing. So Danny Garcia, ever since he got the mustache, has been better than worse, I would say.
It's what I wanted to say. You have Mendy signings. You have probably Kovacevic signings. You have Marinakis signings. You have loans from Marinakis clubs. You have who signed William. You know what I mean? You have like 5 different people trying to create a roster that it's not possible. That's the only issue, and that's why we should be calling for less transfers. We need less transfers. Like, we need to reduce the squad. We need to sign 1 left back, 1 offensive player, maybe 2, but 1 would be better. And we need to reduce the group. That's it. Football is the simplest sport ever on earth.
And Nikos Kotsis in Todeka had mentioned that the transfers that come in, Mendilibar has the final decision, and it sounds like he's going to want to offload people to bring more in. So here's how I think about it, right? We still have 2 spots we haven't used yet on the European list. Okay. We have 2 spots, so we don't have to cut necessarily anybody to fill the European list. My preference, right? And I don't understand how we left the summer without it. We need a left back that will challenge Ortega. I love Apostolopoulos to death. I love his effort level. I love what he did for us last season, but he's not it. I'm sorry. He's not it. Right now. I'm not saying he won't be, but right now we need somebody that will actually challenge Ortega for that spot. We basically need like a Costinha on the left.
Yeah,
if that
exactly.
makes sense. You know what I mean? We need another winger for depth. Not sure. I would love to have a starting winger that could be a playmaker as well. But we also just need one for depth. I mean, we have one player that starts to play bad. Masouras is basically useless for us. And here we are. We need Rodinei to play with us out wide. So we need another winger just for the sake of playing depth. Now I've seen it basically reported by almost every paper at this point that we are also looking for not just a right winger, but a player that can play on the left, also behind the striker, like a playmaker. So I would rather us just go for it to see if we can find that winger playmaker as a second. I don't want us to be making 3-4 signings, especially if we're not moving players on. For me, this squad doesn't need an overhaul, and I don't like hearing that we need 3-4 players. We're so close, Martial.
No, I'm even going further than you, because if we win the title, which is very possible, the chances for us to play Champions League are super high. So what we need to avoid is signing someone that will be useless in 4 months if we win the league. What is the solution for me would be either using a player that we've been loaning. I'm not talking about BL, of course, but someone like Bernit, for example, would have been useful. Ramon, for me, comes close to the best solution we can find in January if, and I insist on the if, we want to have a player that we can sell in the future, or that can play 1 or 2 seasons. Because apart of that, the best solution for us to get a left back is a loan. It's like doing what we did with Horta, for example, but has a left back. You know it too, man. You can't sign a better profile than Ramon in January for a left back if you want to save money. You know what I mean? We don't have a lot of money to spend, and people might be laughing about me, of me saying about Ramon, but Ramon costs like 2.5 million right now, probably 2 million. You know what I mean? So either him or Leitner, but Leitner hasn't been playing anyway.
Leitner hasn't been playing though. That's the problem. So normally
Ramon
I would say
comes up.
yes, Doran Leitner, but he hasn't been playing. Ramon at least has been playing.
I'm being rational because I still believe the squad with 2-3 changes on loan can win the league, and then we get access to Champions League. And I don't want to have spent 3 million on the left back that is not good enough to play Champions League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to sign player now, but also with some vision for the future. Horta makes sense because if we do play Champions League,
Exactly.
I'm not against seeing Horta in the team.
Can I tell you kind of like, and we're not going to go into this, guys. Like next week, we're really going to dissect how the season has gone. We're going to dissect like transfers, what we really need. So we're just going to be general. We're over an hour here. Martial and I are going to get ready and close up soon because it's getting late and the holidays are this week. But like the way I see it, right? And the reason I brought up that Horta comment is, we've heard, Lambros talked about it a lot. We've seen a lot of people talk about the need for a 6. And I put on socials, I also put in the Patreon chat, kind of like, I went through before this game, the previous 5 matches to kind of see where the disconnect was between the midfield and the final third, whether it was the fact that we did need somebody that was like a real 6 to be the player that could help bridge that gap, that gap in transition. And what I saw was a couple of things. But first, the first thing was I realized when watching that I don't think we actually need a 6. What I think we actually need is a player that can better link the front 3 and the midfield. Simply because our issues aren't necessarily coming when we're getting attacked, even in Europe in transition. We have one of the best defenses in the Europa League. We allow the least transitions into our final third, second least, in the Europa League. And that goes for Greece as well. So that doesn't tell me that we need a 6, because right now, functionally, we are doing enough to stop people from not only getting into our penalty area, but successfully getting into our final third. What we need is a player that can link us up when we're in transition, because where the things get really bad for us, Martial, we transition, we get forward, and then we get the ball wide, we get into the final third, but then we make stupid errors, or we have no movement, nobody that can actually play the ball or hit a target going into the penalty area. So a player like Horta for me is way more useful, because we saw what Horta did for us last season when he came on, cutting the lines with lovely balls, dictating the pace, slowing things down, players moving off of players too. Was he as useful behind the ball? Not really. But he now is familiar with Mendilibar's system. He's a player that we could bring in, understands the system, knows probably what will be asked of him, and will also be comfortable not being a day in, day out starter. He will be used in whatever role he's needed, and I think he would be happy with that. So that's a player that I think would be very useful for us, not necessarily a 6. So if we're talking about a playmaker, right? That type of player that's a playmaker, can play. Technically, he did play for us out on the left here and there. He played behind the striker here and there. That's a player I would like. Then you get a winger for that depth.
I think what I wanted to add when I've said we need less but better signings is one good signing, like one good player that you put into a team, can change the whole team. And I know it sounds like a LinkedIn sentence, but it's so true. Sometimes when you see a team that is struggling, you're telling yourself, okay, we might need left back, we need number 6, we need a new winger, etc. But if you put someone like Horta, for example, in the team, maybe Bradine is getting twice better. Maybe Velde is getting twice better because the team is working better, and that's why I'm saying we urgently need less signing. It's because the way the club is working is signing 5 players for one position, betting on the fact that 2 of them will be good, and it's not sustainable for obvious reasons, because we are paying fees, wages, and we also creating locker room issues with frustration. And we need
Can
to
I
be
tell you
very
what my
careful.
preference would be? Can I tell you what my preference would be
Yeah,
to do this
go
summer?
on.
I would be, first of all, Oliveira. We're assuming we can move him on. I move him on. Not that I don't value his traits. I just don't think this system can make use of him. That's why. So I would move Oliveira on. If there's not enough space to move Doi into the midfield, I'm also moving Doi on. We
Yeah.
bring in Horta. Horta can be played in one of those top 3 positions. GS is commenting about reducing Muzakitis' time. I don't think Horta would play deep. The deeper midfielders are pretty much locked in now. I don't think Muzakitis' time would be touched. He's almost undroppable at this point. But, I move on Oliveira. If I'm going to move Doi into the midfield, I'm also probably getting rid of Stamenic. And then Kutsidis, I would promote. He would be in Doi's spot for center backs. We already talked about bringing in Horta. We bring in a winger. And maybe I would also first team roster Papacanelos. Those are my moves. I'm not touching the center forwards because I think that we still have use out of we can get use out of Yaremchuk. But those would be my moves, like just thinking off the top of my head. I don't think we need wholesale changes. We need a couple of pieces, maybe a shift of some assets here and there. But that's what I would do.
I would do basically the same. I would. I'm. The logic would say Masuras needs to leave too, but I know the guy
Right.
will probably score 2 goals by June, 2 of them being massive goals. So for the symbol of it, I'm not getting rid of Masuras, but we need to sell Endoy for his own sake, and we need to reduce the number of players in the midfield by, I would say, 2, like Stamenic and Oliveira. The thing is, I might be the only one, but I really appreciate this player. He's not fitting in any of Mendy's plan, but I appreciate either the the style he has, or I think he will be committed until the end because it's a job they've been basically, but also because I do appreciate his personality. So if we can get rid of him, why not? But
Yeah, look,
I
I think I'm with you there because even when I did the scouting report, like there are certain traits and values I thought could be useful. The problem is because Mendilibar refuses to adjust the roles of certain positions, we will never get value out of Oliveira. He can't do the press trap, so he can't play deeper. He's not going to do the work to play deeper for us. Mendy will only play him further forward. And he's also not really what we need further forward, if that makes sense, which is a shame because like he's not afraid to get into the box. He's not afraid to put himself in the penalty area, and he has a great free kick. He's pretty good with set pieces all in all. He actually gets them on target, unlike me, when I was watching Costas Fortuny sky everything from a set piece all the time. So he does have traits. It's just at this point, I just don't see how he fits in that system, especially when Mendilibar is unwilling to make any adjustment to the role that he's playing. I just don't see the fit. And that's really the scenario. It's not that I think he's a bad player. So, Comrade Aries brought up, this is Aris Galamatis, I believe, changed his name. 1st of January, we have Ortega, Apostolopoulos, Ramon, Leidner, and that Greek kid that is on loan in the league with Rodinei and Castillo still being first choices. We need a transfer. So the Greek kid, that Atromiros kid, is not coming in the winter. He's coming in the summer. Leidner's on loan full season, so he would be coming back till the summer. It's Ramon that would be coming back in the winter, along with Pep BL, which is a discussion for another time. But Apostolopoulos, in my opinion, is the player that he needs to go on loan somewhere else. I would loan him in the winter. So in that respect, then you have we have just Ramon. I don't necessarily know if I would trust Ramon to be able to push Ortega. But anyway, that's a story for another time. But yeah, that you've got it. That's all the information there, Adi. So, Martial, we're hour and 15 minutes here, getting ready to close up. Do you have any other comments you want to make before we start moving things?
No. I think we should probably try to. I agree with that comment. I think it's
Biancon, lovely player.
Biancon alone is one of the reasons I will never agree on the fact that the squad is not good enough to win the league. Like,
Right.
the amount of talent we have right now is huge. It can't be working at the same time every time.
Right.
A season is very long. We know that. We can't predict how the playoff will be in terms of confidence and form, but we have so many arguments, and every big club in Greece basically will go on the market to find to fill the gaps he has in the squad. But so is football. Every 6 months you have holes to fix.
Yep.
But hopefully we don't do crazy stuff in January.
I agree with you. I think we talked about it right after the match review, Martial. I talked about like where we kind of stand now, and I think looking at this winter window, we really only need. I still contest that we need 1-2 pieces. The other reporters say 3. How many winter windows do we remember? We need 5-6 players. We're going to overhaul the squad. How many times has that happened, Martial? So many.
Too many
So
times.
I think the fact that this is the situation we're in, which has been helped by, of course, our youth, our U19 players, I think this is a pretty good position for us to be in. I would like to see us move on a player or two, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think in the end, this is not a bad position to be in. We're not sure. Okay, I get some of you. We've dropped points. We should be winning the league by 9 points. Whatever, I get it. But we're in first place, 9 points in Europe. We need 1 or 2 changes really to get this squad to be in an area where we want it to be more, maybe be more dynamic. That's pretty good considering what we've had to deal with in the past. So we're going to leave it on that note. Martial, anything else before we close up?
No.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every engagement helps us grow. Follow us on socials. There's 3 giveaways going on right now, by the way. 3 giveaways on Instagram. There is a lamp. It's like an Olympiacos Conference League lamp. Looks really cool. USB lamp. There is a really nice Conference League poster with El Kabi. Very nice giveaway. And then the biggest giveaway that's happening is also a signed Fournier jersey. A signed Evan Fournier jersey. So go check out Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram already, go there now. There's 3 amazing giveaways for the holidays. And then, of course, check out socials. There's some great content coming up. Hopefully, a really nice interview as well that we'll have for you guys for the holidays. So continue to follow us. This is Thrylos International, by the fans for the fans. And we'll see you guys next time.